as Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just made that landing, and most importantly how he's expected to engage in back-to-back bilaterals on the first day of the BRICS Summit. Yes, the BRICS Summit 2024, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will meet with Vladimir Putin in a bilateral today, but most importantly it is unclear to whether he will engage in a bilateral with Xi Jinping, this given as the major LAC breakthrough that has been achieved with the patrol agreement, and India also looking to retain status quo as was in 2020. Cutting across to Krutarth, joining us on the broadcast to take us through the details of Prime Minister Modi's itinerary and what's on the agenda as far as the 2024 BRICS Summit is concerned.
Good afternoon to the viewers of Republic and Suesha. And yes, Prime Minister Modi has a packed day ahead of him. Right now, he has just arrived at the Kazan airport, and from now, he is expected to be welcomed by the Indian community members, where he goes to his hotel. From there on, most likely at around 3:30 p.m. this afternoon, Prime Minister Modi is expected to hold a bilateral meeting with President Vladimir Putin. Remember, viewers, this will be the second major bilateral meeting between India and Russia since Prime Minister Modi's previous visit to Moscow in July earlier this year. So this is going to be a big event. Subsequently from there on, there is also a second bilateral meeting slot which is around 4 p.m. However, it is still very uncertain as to whom Prime Minister Modi is exactly going to meet. There are a lot of world leaders in town, especially because of the BRICS Summit. We also have some special attendees like the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and also the Iranian President Pezeshkian, who is also at Kazan for the BRICS Summit. However, the biggest spotlight right now is on India and China relations, and whether or not Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping will hold a bilateral meeting. If it happens, it will be the biggest bilateral meeting between the two nations since last at least 3 to 4 years, since there was a border standoff between India and China. Now, from what we know since yesterday when the update came in that India and China have now successfully come to a border patrolling agreement along the line of actual control, almost resolving 100% of the issues that came out as a result of the 2020 standoff between India and China. So all eyes will be indeed on Modi and Xi bilateral meeting. However, it is fairly uncertain and there is no official confirmation yet whether the two top leaders will actually have a bilateral meeting, Suesha.
Continue talking to us, Krutarth, because this is Prime Minister's second visit to Russia in the last 4 months. This, of course, as he is also slated to hold a bilateral with Putin. In focus is how India is also going to balance deepening ties with the United States, given the fact that this is the BRICS grouping where Russia and China primarily dominate. But with regards to the bilateral with Russia, what's on the cards?
Very interesting question indeed, Suesha, and that is what the entire global community, especially the Western nations, will be looking at. India has a very unique position in the global world order, and India has firmly been a strong proponent of a multipolar world order which is not pivoted towards the West. Hence, BRICS Summit is a very important step and a forum for India at a global stage where India gets to balance its act with both the Eastern and the Western nations with equal warmth and regard that Indians have as a base of their foreign policy. BRICS Summit is never looked as a counterbalance, however, to the West. India has always looked at BRICS as its own strategic alliance of partnership with Asian nations and the other nations of the global South, which is why BRICS becomes a very important forum for India in terms of foreign policy, Suesha.
In fact, we stay with these pictures, Krutarth. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as he just gets off that plane that has landed at the Kazan airport in Russia, and shortly from now he will make his way to the hotel where he is expected to receive a rousing reception by the Indian diaspora. In fact, we learned that according to Indian Standard Time, that will be in about half an hour from now. Like we've been saying, Krutarth, according to the Prime Minister's itinerary that has been put out, he is expected to engage in bilaterals which are one after the other on the first day of the BRICS Summit. But here we see how the security protocol is in place at the Kazan airport, and it is senior officials and dignitaries of Russia who are there to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Kazan airport, Krutarth.
And Prime Minister Modi from here on will now embark towards his hotel, from shortly after which he will have his first bilateral meeting of the day with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. But these visuals that we are bringing you live from the Kazan International Airport, we can see that Prime Minister Modi is at present interacting with top ministers of the Russian government who have come to receive him at the airport. And from there on, he is receiving an official state welcome. This is very much reminiscent of the scenes that we saw back in July when Prime Minister Modi went to Moscow for his official first bilateral meeting in his third term. And right now, Prime Minister Modi back in Russia just after a couple of months for the BRICS Summit, which is one of the flagship alliances of multipolar forums that India and Russia share together. And the relationship ties between India and Russia are equally strong, as we can see that Prime Minister Modi back-to-back visits to Russia in just short span of time within the first few months of his third term shows that Russia has a lot of priority in India's foreign policy and strategic partnership when it comes to the global world order and when it comes to dealing with global affairs, both in Asia, in West Asia, and with the West at large. Suesha.
Kritarth, we also understand that the BRICS 2024 summit is particularly significant as there has been an addition of 5 new countries that have joined BRICS and dozens of other countries that have expressed its interest in joining. Really to understand where India stands as far as the BRICS expansion is concerned and how its position differs from that of Russia and China.
Indeed, Suesha, and this year is going to be the first summit of Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and United Arab Emirates at the BRICS Summit, and it's going to be a huge affair. We already saw yesterday Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan of UAE had already arrived in Russia, and President Putin already had a bilateral chat with him. We'll also most interestingly see the Iranian president also attending the BRICS Summit. So we know for certain that the tensions in West Asia, particularly with Israel is concerned, will also be at the top of the agenda when the conversations will take place in Kazan. But India largely has been a firm proponent of BRICS expansion. It has always believed that BRICS has to be an open platform where many countries can come together and share their concerns. This year, in fact, we even have a lot of guest countries who are also visiting the BRICS Summit, like Indonesia, who's also expected to participate as a visiting member to the BRICS Summit this year. India has firmly believed that there is a dire need of reconfiguration of multipolar world order and the reconfiguration of the world order as we know, which is why we also saw back last month in New York, where at the General Assembly in the United Nations, a lot of countries brought in serious concerns about reforms at the World Trade Organization and most importantly, the United Nations Security Council.